I had a discussion a couple of months ago with a gentleman, and we were talking about sport. And I asked him a question about his coach and the impact his coach had on his, not only on his game, but on his life. His response to me was, "Of course, I remember what my coach said to me. I'll never forget it." Does that happen often? Do coaches realize that they have an impact on their young players for a lifetime, not just for a season or for a career, but for a lifetime? This is what we're going to explore today. Hi, I'm Keith Lee. I'm your host for It's About Time. And thank you for joining us. This is one in a series of programs and broadcasts that we're going to bring to you that explore the culture of sport and how it relates to society. I'm very happy to be with you here today and talk about this very important topic today: the lifelong impact of a coach's word. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right. This is a great topic. Hey, listen, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We appreciate your comments and your views. So, again, this is just one in a series of topics we're going to address. The coach's word and its impact. You know, I've coached youth sports for a long time. I think it's going on 34 plus years, something like that. And my last venture was with girls fast pitch softball. And I talked to one of the parents, one of the mothers of one of the girls I was coaching. And she mentioned to me that when she played softball, she remembers her coach, who was a male coach, mentioning to her that, you know, he used to say things like, "Boy, you don't throw like a girl." Or he'd say, "Hey, you're doing that better than a boy could do." So the impact on her was an immediate and got an extended comparison of her skills to a boy instead of just evaluating her for who she was. And she said she never forgot that. And it did. It had an impact on her. A coach's word, I know for me, I've had some really good coaches in my life. And I remember my very first game in the NFL. I'll never forget it. 1980. I was on Buffalo. We were playing the Detroit Lions, and it was it was a nervous time for me. And this was my first opportunity to start. And of course, this was a preseason game. My task was a little more challenging in the sense that I had never played defensive back before. My whole life, I was a quarterback. So I had a little extra way to go in terms of proving myself. Well, before the game, I sat in the locker room and I was trying to calm down. It was a battle between being excited, being not believing that I was in an NFL uniform, and then the other fear was, of course, the fear of failure. But I remember what my coach told me in high school, 1973. Gardena High School, by the way, Mighty Mohegans. I had to give a little shout out. But just before the city championship game, our coach came in the locker room and he said, "There's really no need to be nervous. You should have been nervous in the week of preparation. That's when you prepare, you watch film, you study a playbook, and you execute the techniques and the schemes that we've put in place. That was the only time to be nervous. What needs to happen now before this game is excitement, to put your best out on the field and measure it against your opponent. There are some things you have control of and some things you don't. What you have control of is your preparation and putting it into play." Those words I carried not just through that first NFL game, but I carry those words today. And when I'm a little tense or anxious about going into a speech or a presentation or whatever it might be, I remember that. And it forces me to prepare because I don't want to be nervous during game time. That's an example of how a coach's word can have application not only to sport, but to the game of life. It's very important. I hope coaches realize the impact they have on young people long after the game is over. I hope they realize that. There was another occasion in junior college. For me, I went to Santa Monica College in Southern Cal. And at the time I was coming through high school and junior college in this case, I think you first have to understand. During that time, it was a very difficult task to make it into Division I football as a black quarterback. And obviously I'm black. And at that time I was a quarterback. And my goal was to make it into Division I football. I chose to go to junior college to prove myself, and hoping that all the conversation about changing my position would change once I proved myself in junior college. But anyway, the reason I'm telling you the story is because my second year there at junior college, after having a great season and our team was successful, it still didn't seem as though the Division I schools were recruiting me as a quarterback. They wanted me to play defensive back, wide receiver, running back. But I wanted to play quarterback because I never understood why do I need to change my position. And I remember one afternoon after practice, I was sitting on the practice field after everyone else went into the locker room, and I was just sitting there wondering, is this all worth it? All the effort I'm putting in, all the sacrifice, the commitment, was it worth it? I even had the thought, maybe I should just go ahead and change my position. As I was sitting there, unbeknownst to me, my coach walked up behind me. In fact, he startled me. I didn't know he was behind me. He sat down next to me and put his arm around me. And he said, never compromise your confidence. You're better than you think you are, and you've only scratched the surface of your potential. Now go out there and be a champion. And that conversation impacted me for a long time because it taught me a lesson. And that lesson was your confidence in yourself is the most important thing that you have. Others can express confidence, others can praise you, they can even motivate you. But your inspiration comes from inside. And so from that point on, his words, I also remember even to this day. It did have a lifelong impact on me. As I mentioned earlier, I had the great opportunity to coach youth sports in football, softball, basketball, baseball, and just about anything else except for soccer. I don't really know much about it, but I would have given it a try if I had the opportunity. But in the 80s, I had an occasion to coach a football team in Massachusetts, small town in Massachusetts. And it was a team of only 16 players. They hadn't won a championship in 37 years. So I came out and decided to help the coach, who was a friend of mine, help him coach the defense. I would be the defensive coordinator. Now this team was only 16 guys, so obviously they had to go both ways. It wasn't a very naturally talented team, and they were slow. But one thing they had a lot of heart, and they had a lot of belief in each other. Any good coach will tell you, I'll take that any day. So we did. So I taught them some sophisticated defenses, but I expected them to learn it. I had a high expectation level for them. And ultimately, I think they respected that. So I had one particular player who was a linebacker. And now he was undersized, he was slow, but he had a lot of heart. In fact, most of the time I was worried about him. I thought he was going to get hurt because he would hit people so hard and he'd get right back up. But sometimes he would overthink, right? And so during practice, I would stand behind him and I would yell in his ear, "Don't you ever give up. Don't you ever give in. You just give it all you got on every play." And I'd say that every practice. And I'm sure he got tired of hearing me scream that in his ear. Well, anyway, the good news is we went on to that season, and guess what? We actually won the championship with 16 players. Slow, not very skilled, but a lot of heart. I was so proud of that team. As the years went by, obviously those kids graduated. Maybe one or two went to a small school somewhere. The rest of them turned into Pop Warner coaches, but great fathers, great citizens of their community. Years later, I was at a luncheon. I think it was a Patriot alumni luncheon. So I was there seeing all my great friends and enjoying the moment. And they said, before we get started, we're going to have the national anthem. We're going to sing the national anthem. So as we prepared to do that, and I prepared to go to my seat, I noticed these Marines coming up, and there was a color guard. And they marched up and they did their thing, you know. And after it was over and we all sat down, a particular Marine came up to me before I could sit. He came up to me, he looked at me, and he was staying at attention. He looked me square in the eye and he said, "Sir, I just want to let you know, sir, your voice rung in my head the whole time I was overseas fighting for this country, sir. And I'm here to let you know, sir, I never gave up. I never gave in. I just gave it all I had." That's what I heard in foxholes. That's what I heard when I was on recon. I heard you. Sir, I want to thank you. Wow. It was my linebacker. I didn't recognize him, but I was damn sure proud of him. It was embarrassing. He almost brought me to tears in front of all those people because they didn't know the journey he and I had been on like 5 years previous to that. So, coaches, your words have a lifelong impact. You know, we got to think before we speak. Coaches, we got to be in control of our emotions at all times. We have young people watching us, emulating us, and more importantly, remembering us. As I mentioned before, I've got a lot of great memories of a lot of great men who helped me along the way. So this is another example of the potential power of sport to positively impact our society. Even if you have to do it one person at a time, it still has impact. And so you're going to hear me talk about that a lot because I believe in it. Hey, this is just one in a series of topics we're going to discuss throughout this series. I want to thank the people who supported me in this broadcast. The Life of Onell, Train with Ace, Incredible Interiors. Thank the other family members and friends who encourage me, who critique this show and tell me to sit up straight, talk louder, and the other things they say. But I want to encourage you again to subscribe to this channel and don't be afraid to add your comments. We look forward to talking with you later. Take care, and remember, it's about time to speak up. Thank you. God bless.